Bibliophiles and readers across the fruited plain unite because the time has arrived for another edition of Rosie's Book Club 2.0 here at the Radio Backyard Fence. Today, your observations, comments, questions, and reaction to the story by a man named George MacDonald. The story is titled The Wise Woman. If you have read it, I want to hear from you today. If you have not, that's okay. You will benefit from the conversation straight ahead. From the heart to the heart and for the heart of good stories well told, Dr. Rosalie de Rosset is standing by. She's brought a guest from her classroom with her. This is going to be so good. We shouldn't be allowed to have this much fun on the radio, but it's going to happen right here. It won't be as good without your participation. So here's the number, 877-548-3675. If you want to be part of the discussion, ask a question, make a comment, 877-548-3675. Find all of our contact information at the website, chrisfabrylive.org. Let me thank our team, Ryan McConaughey, doing all things technical. Trisha's our producer. Lisa's in the chair. Josh will be answering your calls today. And you would not be hearing this book club conversation without the support of our friends and partners of Chris Fabry Live. Each month, I get to choose a resource to send your way as a thank you. And because I've heard so many responses from broken-hearted parents who have fractured relationships with their adult children, anyone who supports us this month is going to receive Dr. Kathy Cook's book, Resolve Conflict and Find Peace and Hope with Adult Children. The easiest way to do that, just go through the website, chrisfabrylive.org. You'll be able to scroll down and see the book right there. Give a gift, a one-time gift or a monthly gift if you want to be a partner with us, chrisfabrylive.org. Or you can call our listener line to give at 866-95-FABRY. Thank you for helping us continue these conversations at the Radio Backyard Fence. Dr. Rosalie de Rosset is retired professor of literature at Moody Bible Institute. She taught full-time more than 50 years, earned her M.A. in English from Northeastern Illinois University, MDiv from Trinity, Ph.D. in language, literacy, and rhetoric from the University of Illinois at Chicago. She is the author of Unseduced and Unshaken, The Place of Dignity in a Woman's Choices, which is still in print after 14 years. Rosie, welcome back. How you doing?
It's wonderful to be here, Chris, as always, and I always smile when you say those things.
And here's who you've brought with you, a junior at Moody Bible Institute studying linguistics and biblical languages, with the hope of serving in Bible translation. Joanna Odine from Yorkville, Illinois, is passionate about all things language and literature. Joanna, welcome to the program. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. Thank you, Chris.
Tell me more about that, studying linguistics and biblical languages. If you were to look down the road 10, 15, 20 years, where do you want to be and what do you want to be doing?
Well, my hope would be to be in some other part of the world serving on a Bible translation project.
Fantastic. Any particular place, if you could throw a dart and say, I'd love to go here, where would it be?
Oh, I'm not really sure yet. I'll go wherever God sends me, but I kind of have an interest in like the region, like the stands and Russia and that area. Okay. So.
Excellent.
And she was in Guatemala this summer, Chris, doing translation
Yeah, what did you
work.
do in Guatemala?
I was working with a missionary friend. She was translating these video discipleship materials from English into Spanish, and I have connections with a Spanish-speaking church here in the Chicago area, so my church was kind of helping her church with part of the translation process, and I got to be down there for a while helping and then organizing volunteers back here. So.
Fantastic. So, Rosie, tell me about Joanna. Why did you invite her here today?
Well, I had two people in mind. One was my brother Fred, who had just read it and loved it, and he's a very careful reader. But I know that you always say two professors on the air is intimidating. I'm about as intimidating as a rutabaga, but that's another. But so I began to think, and Joanna was in my last class I taught at Moody, Images of Christ, and she's just exceptionally insightful, and she's willing to talk. So she was, and she's humble. She just was wonderful in interpreting literature. And so I thought, oh, why not? You know, you have to be careful with that. You don't know if they'll, talk, and she did. So she talked all the time, and not in an obnoxious way, in a very good way. So, and I knew she'd understand well and be able to bring something to the table. And it's a good thing to have somebody young on the air. So
I agree. Yeah. And the fact that she's smarter than both of us put together, that helps.
It helps.
Okay, so let's begin then. The Wise Woman, very short book, is not very long at all. Tell me about George MacDonald and why you chose this book.
Well, first of all, I just absolutely love the book. I've loved it for years and years and years. I do not equally love all of MacDonald. He tended to be a little bit polemic. In other words, principles of wisdom. His novels are not all successful as literary fiction. But, of course, he wrote some wonderful fantasties. Lilith are his two best novels, and his children's stories are wonderful. But I have never concealed the fact that I regarded him as my master, wrote C.S. Lewis of George MacDonald. Indeed, I fancy I have never written a book in which I did not quote from him, which is really true. You can see MacDonald in Lewis often. Indeed, he figures as one of the angel guides in The Great Divorce. And then G.K. Chesterton said that the book that made the greatest difference in his whole existence and made him see things in a certain way was The Princess and the Goblin. So he was an obscure Scotsman living during the age of Dickens and Thackeray. He became much more well-known in the United States. He began to be published by Erdmann's and a couple of other...
He had a big, long beard, too, didn't he?
Yes, he had a big, long beard. His dates are 1824 to 1905, so obviously he was not a contemporary of Lewis's. Lewis was born in 1898. And they say he had an almost perfect relationship with his father, who was the earthly root of all his wisdom. And this is a book about wisdom. So he was prepared in an unusual way to teach about the relationship between the Father and the Son as central to our lives. He actually wrote poetry, novels, literary criticism, and children's tales. And he's talked about, for children from 9 to 90 or 8 to 80. And his sermons are actually very, very good, too. He reacted to rigid Calvinism, and so he was actually, his salary was lowered. He was a very ill-paid cleric. His salary was lowered because they said he preached too much on the mercy of God, which is very funny. So he managed to limp along a little bit longer, and then he embarked on a life of lecturing, tutoring, occasional preaching, and odd jobs. Was always poor, but always optimistic. Had 11 children, 4 of whom preceded him in death. And he was immensely popular as a speaker, and he toured America to crowds that would be in relationship to numbers of the time, like rock concerts today. Like I said, he remained poor his whole life. Very good friend of Lewis Carroll's, and the very famous picture of Alice from Alice in Wonderland is modeled after one of his daughters. And his biggest theme was obedience to God. He said, "We are no more to think, what would I like to do, but what would the living one have me do?" And Lewis said he seemed like a very sunny man, and he was generous toward his friends, hospitable to strangers, and very responsible to his children, deeply in love with his wife, whom he sorrowfully awaited reunion with when she died 3 years before him. And this just takes the cake. MacDonald's son commented, "They give so realistic a picture of domestic and widely shared happiness, so simple, faithful, and happy were this father and mother, so full their lives of pathos and humor." Isn't that wonderful?
That's a picture pulling back the cover of their lives.
Yeah.
I saw one of his biographers said that his theology, see if you agree with this, his theology celebrated the rediscovery of God as Father and sought to encourage an intuitive response to God and Christ through quickening his readers' spirits in their reading of the Bible and their perception of nature. Do you agree with that?
Oh, yeah, I absolutely do. And of course, we have a theme inside this story of the importance of story and narrative. And when you think how great the narrative, the scripture is, I think what he is trying to do is to get delight back into the Christian life, into obedience, and into, obviously, the reading of scripture. There are theological little nuances that are not quite a straight line in MacDonald, but I don't worry about them.
Joanna, is there anything you disagree with so far? Anything you want to bang the table and say, no, that's not right?
I don't have any disagreements.
All right. Well, we're going to get to them. We're going to get to those because in our next segment, we're going to open this book, The Wise Woman. And here's the number, 877-548-3675. If you have read this and you have a question or a comment, or if you haven't, and you are listening along to this story that was written, I think it was published in 1875, The Lost Princess, A Double Story is the other title of that, The Wise Woman, 877-548-3675. Rosie's Book Club 2.0 is in session. Today we're talking about The Wise Woman by George MacDonald. You can find out more about the book club at chrisfabrylive.org. And know this, by the end of the hour, we're going to tell you the next book, which will be in October for our book club, Rosie's Book Club. So make sure you stay with us. Rosalie de Rosset is a retired professor of literature, author, and she's brought along with her Joanna Odine, who's a junior at Moody Bible Institute. And I told her in the break, we're going to throw you into the middle of the deep end of the pool here, Joanna, because I'm going to ask you the big question. What the wise woman, what in the world is this story all about? What do you say?
Well, that's a great question. I would say that the story is about kind of two things. It's about parenting in one sense, and then also how the wise woman, who is kind of like a Christ type in the story, undertakes to redeem these two little girls who have kind of had both the result of bad parenting and their sinful natures working in them. And so the wise woman is trying to, first of all, to show them the ugly parts of themselves that they don't see, and then to offer them the way to be redeemed from that. That way.
And in doing that, then, as you read it, you can't help but see yourself as the person who needs that kind of change too, right?
Oh, yes. Yeah, that was definitely one of the things that I remembered most about reading this novel for the first time in Dr. de Rosset's class was, even a particular scene where Agnes is shown herself inside of the globe, where she's kind of just stuck with only herself. She's a very self-centered and conceited child. She's not out of control, or she doesn't lose her temper like Rosamond does, but she's very conceited. And so the wise woman puts her into just this ball where she can only see herself. The only thing she can see is her own reflection, and she just is stuck with herself, and she realizes how just not pleasant of a person she is to be stuck with forever. So it definitely shows you yourself. But
yeah,
it shows your wormy heart, regardless. It's a quote right out of the book, your wormy heart. Yes. I love that.
So the two girls, then one is born of royalty. She's the princess. Mm-hmm. And the other is as a shepherd and shepherdess as parents. So they're wildly different from class, but they both have the same problem, basically, right?
They do. They're both, narcissism can happen anywhere.
Yeah.
And it looks, Joanna and I were talking before we came on the air, and they look so different because Rosamond is an insufferable brat. She's just horrible. She just shrieks all the time, and it takes the bulk of the book.
She throws the rabbit. What's the thing about throwing a rabbit in her mom's face?
We talked about that, about her cruelty to animals, and I thought, Joanna, I said, boy, this is a hard detail to put in a children's book, but you had something very good to say about that. Go ahead.
I think because, by the end of the story, we can see that Rosamond is fully redeemed and fully restored to being a pleasant person, and Agnes is not. And so I think MacDonald puts that detail about that animal cruelty in there so that you don't just start pitying Rosamond from the beginning. He wants you to see how grotesque she is, just like Agnes. And there might be a temptation to just say, well, she had horrible parents, and so she has no culpability. But MacDonald never does that. The wise woman never treats them that way, even though she recognizes the failures of the parents and places blame on the parents for their failures. She also is saying, they're sinful and they need to be changed. Their hearts are what need to be changed.
In fact, she says to the parents of Rosamond, you're 50% of the problem. She doesn't say they're all of the problem. They're horrible parents.
Oh, yeah.
And in fact, we were talking about the issue of these two types of children. I think every parent should read this, honestly, because their children are represented everywhere. And I just read a line, and Chris, you can correct this. I'm not a parent, so it's very smug of me to say this. I've always said my children would be serial killers, so let's just get that on the table. But that this is the worst generation of parenting that maybe has ever been, and a lot of it is because they don't care enough to correct. Mm-hmm. They don't care enough to be consistent. They allow the coaxing. So here's this child that. Do the parents even love her, the king and queen? They're not involved with her.
There's no indication that they ever show her love on a personal level other than giving her things. And then there's this shepherd and shepherdess that can't give anything, live remotely. But the trouble is this child has grown up with so much self-satisfaction. She's so smug. And they talked about like how the parents would just repeat everything she said as if it was the smartest thing.
Yeah. And my child is so graceful. And in fact, they when they finally have Rosamond in their home, she's really got some of the same faults of their child, but they think are awful in Rosamond, but their own child was just wonderful.
There's a part where the shepherdess says, man, this girl, she's almost as conceited as... And then she stops because she was about to say Agnes, but...
Yes.
Yeah. She holds herself back. and it's that issue of if we love our children... we correct them, and I think of children that are raised on screens today and completely ignored and indulged and, in fact, shut up with screens. And, of course, I have to always get that in there, Chris.
Yeah, of course
but we got to have the anti-screen statement. Yeah. So, yes. And that whole theme of being somebody. Everybody thinks they're a somebody. And today everybody thinks they're a somebody. I mean, look at influencers. What on earth is an influencer? Really. And I think of Emily Dickinson's poem, are you nobody? I'm nobody. Are you nobody too? How dreadful to be somebody. How public like a frog. To tell one's name the livelong day to an admiring bog. And there we are, telling our names. And that's what we have to be cured of.
Okay, so Agnes loses her temper.
No.
And well...
Rosamond does.
The opposite.
But
Agnes...
And on this, where I am, now don't correct me, because it says, then Agnes lost her temper and put out her hands to seize the little girl, but lo, the little girl was gone. The moment she hated her, it flashed upon her with a sickening disgust that the child was not another, but herself,
you're right.
Somebody, and that she was now shut up with her forever and ever. No more no matter where you go, there you are.
There you are. Yes, she is so. I think one of the reasons, I think we talked about this too, one of the reasons she is not fully redeemed, and I think it's so good that it's left uncertain, is that she is so shallow. Mm-hmm. She has never read stories. And whereas Rosamond, as you pointed out,
she thought that the wise woman was an ogress going to eat her. Rosamond did, because she'd heard stories of these scary creatures, but it said Agnes didn't even know enough to be afraid. And in fact, it says like when the wise woman kind of kidnaps both of them.
Yeah.
With the cloak, with the black cloak, and pulls them in there,
them up, takes them away.
Yep, and when she takes Rosamond, she sets her down when Rosamond kicks, but she says that she knows that Rosamond will run after her because she's afraid. But when she's carrying Agnes away, it says she carried her the entire way because she knew if she set her down, she'd be too complacent to follow her.
Isn't that interesting?
Yes.
That is, and so really, I really have always felt like Rosamond was the least dangerous of the two, but I've been corrected by reading interpretive stuff about it. And they're both dangerous. Rosamond's horribly dangerous in an unredeemed state.
But she's overt with it. You
can see it. Mm-hmm. And so like when I have students that are so proud they won't talk, that's much more dangerous to me than the person that never shuts up. It's got their hand in the air all the time.
So which one is Joanna? She's right in the middle.
Joanna's just so good that it never looks bad.
Okay, so we're talking about the wise woman. This is exactly what I wanted to do, and I had problems with this story, and I'll tell you about those if we have time. But I want to get to your phone calls. Donna's in Ohio. Donna, why did you call today?
Hello. I am not a big reader, but this book, I couldn't put it down.
Oh, good.
I read it in 3 days. That's good for me.
I'm so glad.
So I wanted to ask you about the part where it said about writing off on the back of a devil. It was on page, oh my goodness, I lost my page.
That's not coming to mind, nor to Joanna's.
Oh, I got to find it.
Well, the quote that I have here is, but there are victories far worse than
that's
defeats.
It, right there. Yes.
Right?
There are victories far worse than what? Than defeats. Yeah.
Yeah.
So getting away with something go ahead.
Yeah, I think it was talking about like the shepherd and shepherdess there. Mm-hmm. It was saying that when they just gave in to Agnes and let her have it, and it seemed like a win because there was no fight, there was no argument, it would have been better for them to challenge her and to actually, because she was just winning every time and thinking that she had the right.
It's that thing about making somebody be quiet or eliminating the conflict whatever way you can, and putting them on a screen, rather than pursuing. It is hard. They say the most important thing you can do with a child is to not give up. You must be absolutely consistent in what you have said is going to happen if they don't do what they're supposed to do.
Okay.
Isn't that what we're talking about, though, with the comfort? We think, even with God, it's like you're supposed to make my life comfortable. And if I have problems and I struggle with this or that or the other thing, we think, well, he must not like us. He's going to eat us, like the wise woman, like she thought.
Suspicious, yeah.
But no, this is bringing about character and perseverance in you that can't be found in any other way. Isn't that part of it?
Oh, I mean, where would we be? That's why parents are supposed to be such a model of a loving but insistent God. It teaches them their character.
Okay, so Donna, I see also the place where the mirror, you mentioned the place of the mirror. Tell me why that struck you.
Oh, that struck me because it's like when we see, she was seeing her sin, and for us, when you become a believer and you are redeemed and just look back and see, wow, how ugly your sin is in the face of God.
Okay, so that section
is really hidden. Yes.
It says, the wise woman caught up the little mirror and held it before her. Agnes saw her somebody, the very embodiment of miserable conceit and ugly ill temper. She gave such a scream of horror that the wise woman pitied her, and laying aside the mirror, took her upon her knees and talked to her most kindly and solemnly. So that you can see in that, this relationship that the woman has, Joanna, that she is comforting, but at the same time, she let her see the ugly part, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
And I think there's something with Rosamond, too, earlier on where something like a mirror is shown to her, and Rosamond breaks it and doesn't want to see it. She shatters it in pieces. But it's interesting because Agnes, after she looks, like right after that passage, it talks about how while the wise woman was talking to her, instead of resolving to be better inside, she was just internally resolving to not let it show. She said, I'm going to be a hypocrite, and just to cover up. And so it's interesting, the two reactions.
So to manage what you look like
your veneer,
rather than change.
Then absolutely change. And at the end with Rosamond, she says, how could you love such an ugly, ill-tempered, rude, hateful little wretch?
She sees herself.
She sees herself, and she glows, and it says that her impertinent nose is better. She looks less squirrely. She looks better.
Yeah.
She actually looks better.
Donna, what you said about reading this, that you're not a big reader, that you don't, read that much, but this one grabbed you. I'm so glad you called, because that's exactly what we want to happen in the conversations that we have with the book club. We read Shane in June. We're reading The Wise Woman this month, and then in October, there's another one coming, and I'll unveil that here in just a little bit. But I want to be honest, because I had a hard time getting into this book. And I don't know, maybe it's because I'm not a wise woman or a little girl, a little wretch, although I did see myself in this. I've never read MacDonald. I've seen quotes by him. I've heard the famous, the L'Engle and Lewis and Tolkien and I've heard this, but there was something fairy tale like about this that reminded me of Grimm's. There are kings and queens, there's royalty, there are dark foreboding woods, there are animals that snarl, hyenas, and scary enough to make you not want to go into the dark woods. There are children who go missing or are seemingly on their own. They have to find their own way, figure out who they really are, and then a character who comes along and who doesn't just rescue them, but shows them themselves, which is the wise woman. And that's what we're talking about today. So I'm going to get you two to comment on that. More of your calls coming up straight ahead on Moody Radio. Rosie's Book Club 2.0 with Dr. Rosalie de Rosset, along with one of her students, junior at Moody Bible Institute, Joanna Odine. You can find out more about them at chrisfabrylive.org. chrisfabrylive.org. The book is George MacDonald's The Wise Woman, and Raj is in Oklahoma. Hi, Raj. Go ahead.
Chris, you're not the only one that has problems reading female literature. I had the same thing. And the problem is I get too hung up on the intricacies of the wording and this, and there's a woman that... What I have to do is, and it helps me, is step back and get a global picture. So, for example, Rosamond the princess, she was raised by parents that were privileged, that were royalty, so that maybe they didn't know any better, so they put all of their values on this kid, give this kid everything they want because that's what parents do. What I had to do is figure out what am I going to get from this story? And here's what happened to me. Here's a privileged girl, then she's kind of spoiled. Now I look back at my life, what can I get from this story that is applicable to my life? And so now I understand maybe why my parents did what they did to me, raising my brother and I. They were suffering from certain things. They didn't know better. Mm-hmm. So what I found out is what can I get that's going to be applicable to me to understand me and the world better? And so that really helped me.
Okay. Rosie, what do you think of that?
Well, I have to take a deep breath about the female narrator. It's written by a man. I want to,
yes.
Yeah.
With a long beard.
I don't
but
think...
it is, I think what you're saying is, Raj, that it's female-oriented. It's a female-heavy story. There are a lot of women in the story that have big main characters there. Okay, keep going, Rosie.
Yeah, and we've been reading a lot of male stories most of our lives, and we have done it quite well, I would just add, with a little edge. But anyway, moving along, I understand the issue of it being didactic. I don't totally understand the whole female thing because I think the principles apply to all children everywhere and to parents who raise both kinds of children, both of whom have issues with selfishness and narcissism because of their handling. But it could be that it's just not your type of writing. I have always said there are things that are not our type, and we don't have to love them. We don't have to love everything, even if somebody has said is important. But I do think that MacDonald does what he does with such quotability, and he gets at the heart of something that is generational today, the easiness of not taking parenting seriously as an act of love and as a surrogate of God in the lives of these children. And so I think he gets to two issues in the 19th century that are probably more current now than they were then. And one is the acquisitional nature of raising children with things, and the second one is of making them too special. And so those things are so applicable. But beyond that, and Michael Rodonick sent me a copy of a chapter out of a book of essays written by a former Moody student. His name is Seth Postel, very bright guy, about how this is a personification of wisdom right out of the book of Proverbs. And if you read Proverbs 3:19, by wisdom the Lord laid the earth's foundation, by understanding he set the heavens in place. And if you follow that up in the question becomes, is wisdom eternal or created? And wisdom is co-eternal with God. And so I think MacDonald understood that wisdom was co-eternal with God, and you see that particularly, and you can read this for yourselves, in Proverbs 8, 27 to 30. And therefore, that quality is absolutely crucial to the life of a Christian who truly is going to live a life that is holy and that will be able to endure all the hardships that life gives on this earth. And these children are neither of them capable, one, because she has never learned to respect anything. She is the center of her own universe. And the other one, because she doesn't know anything outside of herself. And so the impartation of wisdom on the behalf of parents is absolutely crucial, and they need to dedicate themselves to it. And it's hard. I say that with great respect. I can't think of anything harder than managing toddlers.
I think Raj put his finger on something that I'd struggled with, though. And that was, his question was, what can I do? What can I learn from this? What can I do with this? What can I apply to my own life?
That was very good.
And for me, though, if I come into a story thinking that way, it pulls me out of the story, and it does not let me be a part of the story. It makes me observe, and it makes me take notes, but it doesn't make me a part of the story. And I think that, and it's partly because of the era that it was written in. I've read some other stories that were written in the 1800s. It's very much the same way. It's very descriptive. You kind of observe, but you're not there. Except for the hyenas and the snarling, the darkness out into the woods. But I want to be pulled into the story, and there was a certain sense that I felt like I was just always observing it. Joanna, what do you think?
I was one of the people who read the book in 2 days, so I think because I tended to put myself in the place of the two girls, like from the beginning. I think that drew me into the story. And I was intrigued by the figure of the wise woman. I think, well, for one, maybe another reason why the female thing was a little hard is we're not used to seeing, like, Christ figures in books or, like, God figures be female. And so I think there was something kind of intriguing about that, to see how that played out, and also to see, like, how that interacts with, like, parenting and things, which I guess it's a little different if you're not in the phase where you are a parent. But even as a person who's not a parent, I think I was kind of drawn in by that aspect.
And for me, the figure of the wise woman is utterly compelling. The love she administered, the way she sang to that difficult child, the way she would persist, and the slightest gesture at first that the girl did toward good or virtue, she would reward it, and then she knew to get harder and harder and harder. And the way she tried to develop their imagination with that room that they opened into and what they saw, and her utter patience in saying, I would never, I forgive you because I had to do this to get you to be redeemed. And I guess for me, it just became a very personal, it made me see the face of Christ. I've been saying that the last 2 semesters have made me see the face of Christ in the literature I teach in ways that I've never experienced before. And part of it's because of the students in the classes. But this one I could cry sometimes at the character of the wise woman. So I can't totally relate. And that's okay. We're very different when we come to books.
I wonder.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, I wonder also because I was in a class with Dr. de Rosset called Images of Christ in the Novels. So we read a lot of novels with different Christ types in them. And some of them are more perfect than others. Like
this one is.
And the wise woman is definitely like a perfect Christ figure picture. And I wonder if maybe some people find that a little less edgy or less relatable because of that. But also it maybe is a clearer, like more clearly transposed onto Christ than other
It's
ones.
more allegorical.
Yeah.
Well, he is known, MacDonald is known as kind of the father of fantasy writing. And at the end, there's this, Rosamond sees this little girl, and the child says, "Look at me." And as Rosamond looked, the child began, like the flower, to grow larger. Quickly through every gradation of growth she passed, until she stood before her a woman perfectly beautiful, neither old nor young, for hers was the old age of everlasting youth. Rosamond was utterly enchanted. "But where is the wise woman?" asked Rosamond, looking all about. "Here," said the lady, and Rosamond, looking again, saw the wise woman folded as usual in her long dark cloak. "It was you then, after all," she cried in delight, and kneeled before her, burying her face in her garments. It always is me, after all," said the wise woman, smiling. "And it was you all the time?" "It always is me all the time." And then she says this thing about the sheep, when the sheep that was looking at you, I was looking through the eye of the sheep. And so it's even, she's kind of shape-shifting here. She's changing, and the girls don't understand that, but that's who the wise woman was, right?
Yeah. She is in everything that brings you higher. She's never separate.
There's a similar figure in another book by MacDonald, The Princess and the Goblin. The figure is also a woman, which is interesting because you said it was his father who was a really clear Christ picture to him. But in both of these cases, famous stories, it was a woman, but the same kind of beautiful agelessness in spite of the fact that you know that she's very, very old.
Yeah.
Then the wise woman says, "Do not think that the things you have seen in my house are mere empty shows. You do not know, you cannot yet think how living and true they are. Now you must go." So the reality of that beauty and that delight and awakening, see, that's what we're going to talk about this tomorrow, awakening delight, that is God's business, isn't it, Rosie?
Oh, it's why people don't follow Jesus, is because they've never been delighted by him. That he's only a proposition. He's only a should. He's not. He isn't in their souls as the formation of everything that. It makes all of life worth it, no matter what comes along, and lots of hard things come along.
And that's kind of what you talked about in our class a lot, about how fiction is, in a sense, true. Fiction isn't lies because it shows us in a way that awakens our delight and our imagination what's real about ourselves and about the world and about God in a way that just propositional literature doesn't do.
One of the things that MacDonald did for me, though, is much like in the Gospel of John, when John will be going along and then he'll kind of turn to the side and say, "And this was because of this," or, that, and then he goes back. He does the same, MacDonald does the same thing. And even at one point at the beginning, he says, "Take it, Mr. Coleridge." So there's these things he's kind of letting us in on. Yeah, as he writes, that did pull me closer into the story and his voice. The Wise Woman is what we're talking about. George MacDonald wrote this. I think it was published in 1875. Rosie is talking about it. Joanna is talking about it. And when we return from a break, we are going to tell you what we are going to read together in Rosie's Book Club 2.0 in October. So you got to stay with us. You got to find out what is the next book that we're going to read. You'll hear about that coming up straight ahead. This is Chris Fabry Live, online at chrisfabrylive.org. Dr. Rosalie de Rosset is back with us today, along with friend Joanna O'Dine, who is a junior at Moody Bible Institute, and we're talking about George MacDonald's The Wise Woman. And I said, yes, we are going to let you know. We're doing this every 2 months instead of every 3 months. Back in June, we thought we'd do this in September. So no, we got to do it more quickly. So in October. Ladies and gentlemen, we have the big announcement right now. In October, we are going to read another book together, and it is...
The Screwtape Letters by C.S. Lewis.
Hey! Okay, who chose that? Rosie, was it you?
I think I did.
Yeah. And in October, it's kind of a spooky month.
Yeah.
And don't you think everybody has read the Screwtape Letters or no?
I came to it really late. I taught it in Monster Lit the last few semesters I taught that. I came to it late and really came to really appreciate it. I had read it, but it's not one of the ones I cared about. Mm-hmm. And when I reread it, I thought, boy, the wisdom of the ages is in here. So
Yes.
Yeah.
And he got some pushback. Well, we'll talk about that when we get to that. There's too much to talk about the wise woman, but get a copy of the Screwtape Letters, be reading that, take some notes, ask some questions in October. Great month to read about Slubgob and all that goes on there. All right, Mark in Aurora, Illinois. Mark, what do you want to say?
Well, I read a series of MacDonald books years ago and loved them thoroughly. And I have a friend who is in a faith crisis, and she told me that George MacDonald is the one author who, more than any other, makes her think that faith might still be something worth having.
Wow.
And I was going to mention Lewis comments that MacDonald is the only writer he knows of outside of the New Testament who combines tenderness and severity the way Christ did.
That's very good.
And he also says that sometimes in MacDonald, the evil is stagey. And I would agree with that. And I would say that if you want to see evil in a very disturbing manifestation, read Charles Williams, who was a friend of C.S. Lewis. But the thing is that when goodness overcomes it, you know that a great victory has been won because the evil is so potent. And there's a lesson in God's sovereignty about that in this, because it's almost as though being further glorified is a bonus that God gets out of evil being so bad. Because when God overcomes it, boy, he really overcomes it.
Well, isn't what you're talking about, in a way, the difference between cosmetic change and transformation?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Because the girls could have just become a little bit better, and a little bit nicer, and a bit more thankful. But God wants to do something on the inside. Rosie, what do you think?
That's exactly right. I mean, that's what Rosamond, Rose of the World, by the way, is way. And Agnes Day, you think Lamb of God. It's kind of interesting just to look at the names. My brothers pointed that out to me. But yes, I mean, she is completely changed, but it takes so many iterations of the wise woman coming after her and after her. I mean, how long does it take? It's like the children of Israel. It's like me. And finally she gets it, and she is just full of joy, even though to Agnes's parents, and this is so well said, the wise woman said, instead of making your daughter obey you, you left her to be a slave to herself. You coaxed when you ought to have compelled. You praised when you ought to have been silent. You fondled when you ought to have punished. You threatened when you ought to have inflicted. And there she stands, the full-grown result of your foolishness. And that's what the burden of Jesus is, and the wise woman, to deliver these children who have been so badly handled by their parents.
Joanna, what do you say to that?
Yeah, it makes me think of a line early on. I think it's when the wise woman first takes Rosamond, and the parents say, we don't know what went wrong. We gave her everything she wanted. And the wise woman said, oh, poor child, how badly you've treated her.
Yes, exactly.
I like there's another line in here because he begins with this is a peculiar country. It's like it's never happened before. And he said, very different from ours. So different that my reader must not be too much surprised when I add the amazing fact that most of its inhabitants, instead of enjoying the things they had, were always wanting the things they had not.
Yes.
Often even the things it was not likely they ever would or could have. And then as she grew up, it was still the same, with this difference, that not only must she have everything, but she got tired of everything almost as soon as she had it. And if that is not a picture of our culture. And if that is not a picture of my own heart, I don't know what is.
No, absolutely true. That's what I mean. George MacDonald has this prophetic insight that covers 100 years, more than 100 years. It just amazing, the wisdom, because he is talking about wisdom, and that wisdom must coexist with being a Christian. We must come to wisdom.
We haven't talked about Prince the dog, though. We got to get Joanna. Joanna, tell me what you think of Prince the dog.
I will say Prince the dog is one of the characters that I find the hardest to figure out in this one, because he just kind of appears and then he just disappears quickly. But it's interesting that he's the first thing that Rosamond learns to love. He is kind of, like Dr. de Rosset mentioned when we were talking earlier, that he's like a figure of God's discipline for her when the wise woman isn't present. And then it's interesting, though, it says like Rosamond learned to love Prince because she was not inclined to love someone superior to herself. She needed to love something inferior, and then she could not learn to love something that she did not first learn to fear.
Isn't that interesting?
Wow.
That is
I wonder
so
if he had pets, if MacDonald had
I'm
sheepdogs,
sure.
Scottish sheepdogs or something like that.
Yeah.
So what, and I was authentic with you here today saying I had a little hard time getting into it.
Right.
But do you see, as we talk about this, even if it's hard for you to read or hard to get through, there are things that you pick up. Mm-hmm. There are ways that you grow, and even if you have a hard time, things that go deeply into your soul. So keep that in mind as you pick up a copy of the Screwtape Letters. Read it before October. Sometime in October, Rosie and I will choose a date, and we'll do that. Rosie, thanks for another successful book club. Come back and see us, okay?
It was wonderful because of both of you. This works.
Joanna, all the best to you. I ask our listeners to pray about what you're doing at Moody and where you're going after that. But much success to you in a kingdom kind of way. Thanks for doing this today.
Thank you for inviting me. It was a pleasure.
Chris Fabry Live is a production of Moody Radio, a ministry of Moody Bible Institute.